Did you know that over 70% of business partnerships actually fail? Well, that's what the topic is today, so let's get into it. So you see, business partnerships actually can be more trouble than they're worth. I see this all the time, especially in small startup trade businesses. A couple of guys get together, they're buddies, maybe they work together at some point, and they decide to start a business. Well, unfortunately, 70% of these guys actually do not survive their partnership, and somebody's leaving the business, or the business is actually going to have to close down. These types of problems can easily be avoided because there are plenty of times where partnerships are actually a great success, but only if certain measures are taken before the partnership actually comes together, such as having a contract or it's written down what the partnership or what the partner's responsibilities actually are in all aspects of the business. Today, I'm going to cover 3 topics that are usually the main culprits that cause business partnerships to not survive. Starting with number 1, unequal effort. And what do I mean by unequal effort? Well, that usually means that one partner or the other feels like, or maybe it's not a feeling, that one of the partners is not, keeping their end of the bargain. Either that be monetarily or in effort. Somebody feels like one partner is not doing as much as the other partner. You'll see this kind of scenario develop when, let's say, one partner invested more money into the business than the other partner. Maybe the other partner was going to pay for their share as like sweat equity. Now, there's certainly nothing wrong with sweat equity, but when you have a partner, sometimes the feelings and the thoughts get a little bit muddy. You know what I mean? If somebody has put a lot of cash into the business, they may feel like the other guy who's doing the sweat equity part is not really investing as much in sweat that equals the amount of dollars that they've invested. Now, I'm sure many of you guys have watched a show called Shark Tank. Yes! Well, those guys, the sharks, they like to invest money into businesses and they want to come in as a partner. But as you see on the show, a lot of times these sharks are asking for way too much stake in the company just for their financial investment. Now, if you actually followed up with some of these companies later on, there's some of these companies where these sharks came in and they completely started calling all the shots of the business because they have invested their own capital into the company. Now, this certainly can be a win for both partners, but unfortunately, a lot of times when there's 2 different heads involved with one direction of a company's leadership, somebody may get a little upset. Which leads me into problem number 2, power tussles. What is a power tussle? Well, a power tussle is when 2 partners, they butt heads. One of them feels like the other one is calling all the shots or telling the other one what to do. And you'll see this a lot of times when 2 buddies work together. 2 friends decide to start a business and one of the guys is starting to take ownership and direction of the company, starts calling the shots, and the other partner feels like they don't have a say. This scenario can be avoided if the direction or the responsibilities of each partner are clearly defined. If one guy is going to be managing the office and the other guy is going to manage the field, or one guy's going to play, CFO and the other guy's going to play COO. A clear definition of what the 2 partners' roles are can help eliminate power tussles. Now, I'm sure at some point in all of our lives, growing up as children or whatever, maybe there was a group of friends and one person of that group of friends tend to be the one who came up with all the ideas of what to get into. Some of the other friends in the circle, maybe they didn't agree with that, but they kind of went along with it reluctantly just because they wanted to still be friends with everybody, but they really didn't want to do what the one person was suggesting everybody do. Well, that leads into what is called a power tussle. So moving on. Now we're going to move into step 3, different motivations. And what do I mean by different motivations? Well, that means that maybe one partner is just wanting to leave their 9-to-5 job, and the other partner is wanting to take over the world with a business. Well, what you wind up with is two partners that just don't share the same, the same vision as far as what the business needs to be doing and where the business is going to go. So if one partner is just trying to escape the 9 to 5, maybe they just want to stay local, maybe they only want to provide one or two types of services, and the other partner is thinking we need to franchise and go across the whole United States, and we need to have 50 different products in every major department store. Well, those types of things need to be discussed in great detail prior to going into a partnership. And there again, planning ahead. If you're going to have a partner, make sure the visions of each partner is clearly outlined of what each one is expecting and what the end goal of the business actually is. Now, these three problems that I just outlined, well, they're very common scenarios of why business partnerships do not survive. And this applies to not just small mom and pop startups or a couple of buddies starting a landscape company or, a junk removal company or something like that. This also applies to major corporations that have been in business for many years. They decide to partner with another company or another brand, and the definitions of what their partnership or the alignment was as far as the direction, what the future plans were, everything that we just kind of touched on, somebody dropped the ball. Oops. So I want to cover a few scenarios where these partnerships, they didn't make it. So the first one I want to mention is Heinz Ketchup and McDonald's. They had a great relationship for about 40 years. Just think about that, 40 years of a love story of two companies coming together and having a great partnership where Heinz Ketchup was the ketchup that was exclusive for McDonald's. Yes! Everything was hunky-dory for those 40 years until the former head guy from Burger King, well, he became the CEO of Heinz Ketchup. So needless to say, McDonald's was a little bit disappointed and they decided to end the agreement. Another example I want to give about bad partnerships, well, I'm sure everybody watching has probably heard of Facebook. Well, if you saw the story of the movie of Mark Zuckerberg and his roommate from back when they were in school together at Harvard, well, they discovered Facebook together. But as the company grew, there was a little bit of an issue between the two gentlemen, and they didn't feel they shared the same direction. Mark Zuckerberg, he pretty much wanted to get the other partner out of the business. Well, that led to a long, painful battle, and I think Mark Zuckerberg had to pay Eduardo a lot of money to buy him out of his shares. I'm not sure exactly what transpired, but nonetheless, it started off with two guys, and now it's just one. A third example I'd like to give you guys is that I'm sure everybody's heard of Starbucks and Kraft, the guys that make cheese or a lot of other processed foods too. Well, Kraft and Starbucks, well, they partnered together. It sounded like peas and carrots. Oops. Like they could just come together and do great things together because Starbucks was still a little bit more of a young company and Kraft was a large conglomerate. So what better way to grow Starbucks than partnering with Kraft? Well, as the partnership moved along and everything was going swell, suddenly what happened was Starbucks, they started making more money. They grew tenfold, I think, of what they originally started at when they partnered up with Kraft. But there was an issue. At the time, everybody, well, let me just say this. Everybody's probably heard of the Keurig, coffee systems, the K-Pods, they call it. No. Well, that was kind of the bee's knees at the time. You see, Starbucks was locked into an agreement with Kraft and using Kraft's coffee system. I believe it was called Tassimo, something like that. It's similar to Keurig, but not the Keurig K-Pods that everybody had. Well, Starbucks realized they were missing the boat by this agreement, so they offered Kraft a large amount of money to be able to, break their contract so they could start making K-Pods for the Keurig coffee system. Of course, Kraft said no, and Starbucks said, you know what? I don't care. We're going to do what we want. And that's what they did. Well, they wound up having to pay Kraft a very large number to compensate them for breaking their partnership agreement. You suck! So, As you see here, partnerships can be detrimental to businesses, and especially business startups. And here's why, because as a business startup, it's already hard enough as one person. Sometimes it may seem like it may be easier to bring in a partner, and certainly there is certain situations where partners come on board to stimulate growth, or maybe they fill a void in what the original owner or founder is not able to produce, so they need to bring in somebody. That may be money or resources or whatever. But having a clear definition of what each partner's responsibility is and sticking to that is paramount for any partnership to ever even think about working. Now, in trade businesses, especially, these partnerships are, man, they seem to be always a bad idea. I'd say higher than 70%, especially in trades. Now, why is that? I'm not real sure, but I would speculate when you're dealing with skilled workers or skilled people, maybe they came from a job and they're taking what they've learned from that job and starting a business with it. You know, like maybe a couple of electricians or a couple of plumbers or a couple of guys that frame houses or something. I don't know. They take their skill set and now they're trying to start a business, which is really two different tasks, if you will. So you got these two guys who are skilled and they come into their business and now they're going to have a power tussle. They're going to feel like one is calling the shots over the other. And if one of them invested more capital than the other one did, well, you're just asking for problems for sure. So bringing partners into a business, whether it be a startup, whether it be a long-standing corporation that's been in business for 50 plus years, it's not to be taken lightly. Those three examples I've given you are just a few. There is several other stories out there that for large corporations that you've heard of where they decided to partner with somebody or brand with somebody, and it wound up being a nightmare. Oops. So if those guys, especially the ones that are doing hundreds of billions of dollars in business already, and their team sometimes makes the mistake of not planning accordingly and outlining what the partnership's roles and agreements are, well, man, guys that are starting up a business and they've never even been in business, they're likely going to regret bringing that partner into their business. So if the power tussles and the discrepancies on who's doing the most work or who's invested the most money, if that doesn't get the partnership to close and fail, well, the lack of direction or similar direction between the two partners definitely will. Make sure you clearly define why you need that partner. So if you're thinking about having a partner come into your business or your startup, make sure that partner is aligned on all those 3 points, but there's others, okay? But those are 3 of the main ones. The power tussles, the capital investor, or the one who's doing the sweat equity or whatever, and then also having the same direction together. What is the vision for the company? What do we hope to achieve from this partnership anyways? Like, what are we doing here? So those things need to be outlined on paper, on a contract, or something like that. So when things get a little sticky, you can always go back to what was written down to begin with to look at the definition of what each partner's role and responsibility actually is. Now, if you've ever had a business partner or you're thinking about bringing in a business partner, or maybe you've heard stories from somebody else you know that has had a business partnership and maybe it worked out, maybe it didn't, well, let us know in the comments below. I'd love to hear about it. And anybody else out there that may watch this video and come across the comments themselves, it would be great for them to have some true stories from others that have experienced this for people that are thinking about bringing a partner or going into business with one of their friends. Now, if any of you guys have any questions for me, I will answer. Just shoot away, I'll do my best. And if I don't know the answer, well, I probably know somebody who does. And if I don't, well, I'll tell you. So, all right, guys. Well, that's all I got here at the Blue Collar Project. I appreciate you watching my video, and I will see you guys on the next one.